Mikey, I got the privilege to do something really fun this weekend. I got to go to a party for a previous coworkers of my wife's. Her husband is having his birthday party, and he just recently got into Magic the Gathering, and a bunch of people bought him packs. I got the privilege of being the most well-versed in Magic in a room of complete normies, and what a world it was. In fact, at one point, his aunt said to him, and I quote, "What are we, 12?" And I responded with, well, actually, he just pulled like a $50 card out of that pack. So it was great.
That's fantastic. The only question I have for that is, who is this guy, and is he going to come play with us soon?
No. He died in a tragic train.
What a birthday. Welcome back to Hometown Commander. We don't even have a slogan, honestly. I was going to be like the show where we talk
about the format we all love, the game we all love and hate,
yes,
right? That's our thing.
That's true. I totally forgot about that. Because I've been loving this game more than I hate it.
Absolute throwback. That's what we do here. We talk about the old times that isn't no longer accessible to the internet.
Yeah, true. Yeah, nobody can get that. Today, we're going to be talking about what cards you put, or you can put, or we're probably putting in your 99 from
in our 99s.
Excuse?
We can't put cards in their 99s.
We can tell them to put cards in their 99s.
Yeah, we can't physically do it, Mikey.
That's a good point.
They are great, respectable people, and they're coming to us for advice. All we can offer them is what we want to do for ourselves.
Anyways, we're going to talk about cards that you could, we will, maybe not put into your 99 from...
Our 99s. The world's 99.
From Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
At Thunder Junction, near
the
Thunder Junction.
Junction. Yes. Yeehaw. Let's get right into it. So, the first card we're going to talk about is a white card.
Hold on.
What?
We got to talk about the thing we did this weekend.
Oh, snap. I forgot about that. What did we do?
I mean, a lot of nothing, but we did go draft.
Okay, sweet.
We drafted this weekend.
I hate draft. I just want the record to show. I hate draft.
I've drafted OTJ a few times on Arena, but this is my first time doing a draft in person, which is really cool because the last time I can think that I drafted in person, Baby Jace was in Standard.
That's Origins.
Yeah, no, Battle for Zendikar was the last time I drafted in person.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I didn't go to a card shop for a while. But at any rate.
I mean, same, honestly, yeah.
Our good friend Adam at Dark Ritual Coffee had the privilege of hosting a draft this past Friday night. We got the privilege to go there and enjoy drafting at his shop, and I did well. I went 2-1. Mikey, how did you do?
I went 2-1 as well. I probably would have went 3-0. Except for a fun fact, Karavec does a lot more than what I thought it did. The whole reading the card explains the card, yeah.
Do you remember when we all sat down for the draft, and I made a pretty loud statement to the room that removal was very prevalent in this format, and that you needed to be aware of that? Well, round 3, I had the privilege of playing into a Grixis removal pile, and it did not go well. I was playing kind of red-green Power Matters / Mounts, and it went pretty well, until the removal happened.
Yeah, I was playing Esper control removal kind of thing. It's my playstyle, so I was like, this is what I want to do. I really played into winning more than I played into, ooh, I had a cool card, let me get this cool card. Yeah, and that's kind of what I did.
The only rare I really got that was that was important to my colors was Hell to Pay. A lot of that deck is common and uncommon, so thankfully I was able to. I joked that I ended up. Pack 3, I first picked a Final Showdown and just paid for my draft. That was basically my draft experience, but...
Nice, yeah. Unfortunately, my first game, my game 1, I was doing really well. I was actually beating the tar out of this guy. And we were removing each other's stuff really well until I realized that about more than halfway through the game, Karavec says pay 2 life and you have to pay the mana as well. I wasn't paying the mana or paying the life for the spells that I was doing that. So, yeah, I told him straight up, I was like, I have to give you game 1. And he goes, why? And then I explained to him, and he was just like, oh.
That's when the judge call happened, and Mikey was then given the match loss.
No, he was actually gracious enough to give me the game, take the game 1 win, the game 1 win. And I unfortunately, kind of just really wanted to rush to the second game, because the first game took, forever. And our group was already behind anyway, so
no, not at all.
It wasn't my fault, I promise. It was
what I found hilarious was, and I don't know if it was just because of the fact that we had a couple more experience mixed with a couple new players, but I feel like the more experienced players on our side of the pod just forced the draft to go along because we were picking very quickly, and it probably threw off the new people who were like, wait, why do I have 3 piles?
Yeah.
You know, but
which is daunting. And one of my guys at my table, they just kept on trying to stack piles on the top of me, and I was like, sweet thanks. Like, they got to a point where they kind of got annoyed because I was like picking way too fast, and I was like, I already figured out what my style was.
Like a lot of the games that I went down, you know, in my process was drawing way too many lands in a row, which is what it is. What aggravated me was I was playing 3 Dance of the Tumbleweeds. And so, like, I was, most games, like, helping to accelerate pulling lands out of my deck, but, you know, sometimes you just draw 5 lands in a row and bin it, so.
Bin it. I had a ton of fun, though. It was really cool because that night, we're going to personally thank you guys. We are now at 1,000 subscribers.
1K subs, baby. Thank you guys so much. We're stoked. Obviously, you've seen probably the biggest thing in the channel has changed, which is ads are now turned on.
Yep.
And we've done that for really one main reason, which is we love making content for you, and we love also being paid for the time that we use to make content for you. If you're listening to this, memberships will be up on the channel before the end of the month. I'm going to make a whole video about that. That'll be out on the channel so you guys will understand more about memberships when they come along.
Yeah, and as we talked about like way back when, I think when we first started this channel, like we wanted to make content, and if we made any money, we were going to put that right back into it. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Product openings, you know, cameras, all that good stuff.
Like, who doesn't want to see like 2 skinny white kids just
and memberships, you know, I'll say it again in the video that comes out. Nothing is going to be locked behind the membership as far as regular content goes. Millsy Brews, the podcast, it's all going to be on the channel. Nothing that you get with the membership is going to be extra. There's just going to be some perks behind the scenes.
For sure.
We don't want to lock the stuff that you guys know and love our channel for behind a membership.
And all I'm saying is I gave the opportunity to gift everybody in the shop a coffee shop, or the coffee shop, a drink. So like Adam over at Dark Ritual, he makes great coffee. Their names are based off a lot of Magic cards or Magic situations.
Obviously, Dark Ritual, of course, the card of the same name.
For sure. He's got a bunch of refreshers.
He has a art print of the original Dark Ritual art, which is pretty cool. He also has some art prints of like the original Eternal Witness and a couple other cards, which has been pretty cool. But yeah, all of his names are based on Magic cards, and it's pretty fun to go in there and just have that experience.
Yep.
And it's been a shop that we both have grown to love, both his coffee and playing it. Like, I'm not a coffee drinker, and I have really enjoyed some of his stuff.
Yes, yeah. He's got great waffles. I went in literally Saturday morning because my wife and I were supposed to go in there, and she kind of didn't because the little one kind of already fell asleep. So.
Yeah, little ones are a thing, and sometimes they
she was like, well, since he's already asleep, you could just go. And I was like, cool. I had to go buy some shelves for my setup at home now and whatnot, and yeah. Got coffee.
Shelves are a thing.
Got coffee, got some waffles.
You can see them behind me. Shelves are a thing.
Shelves are a thing. Hey, you see my cup? Look at that. Anyways.
What's funny is that if there's any eagle-eyed viewers, the setup behind me has actually changed, but we're not going to talk about that at all. We're going to get into OTJ.
I just realized there's a Pampers box back there. We have babies.
It's full of cassette tapes. Anyway, let's get into it.
Let's get right into it.
What do we think of OTJ? OTJ has been a really fun set to me so far. I think there's a lot of really cool things. There's a lot of fun commanders. Says the guy who's been brewing them for the channel, but I've really enjoyed them so far. It's been fun to brew around. There's been a lot of fun cards for not only commanders but also in the 99, which is what we're going to talk about today. But as we talk about the cards we'll talk about today, I'll kind of talk about the ones I would cherry pick for specific cards, certain decks, in my deck box. Mikey, what do you think of OTJ so far?
I think it's great, honestly. I love and hate how many legendary creatures are in here. I love it because it makes sense for a set like this, so just the kind of story and blah, 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 but it also just kind of, like, the amount of different mechanics that are in this set. And not just named mechanics, but, like, just full-on, this goes with X, Y, and Z, I think is really helpful. I mean, we look at, like, Riku, who's all about modal spells. We look at somebody like Vial Smasher, who's all about just getting a bunch of creatures on the board that are specific types. And then just a bunch of others that are really, really good. I like how red and blue, if you're a red and blue commander or a blue commander, it's all about just casting multiple spells. Whereas, like, everybody else is, like, all over the place.
I like that red and blue has really taken this narrative where it's all about spell slinging. Because you always get some sort of new support every time we talk about this.
Yeah.
And I think that probably spell slinger players appreciate that more than anything else. I think this set is really fun because we introduce mercenaries. And I think they're actually going to be relevant if you go on Scryfall and you actually take a look at what's batched in it, there's a lot of really great creatures.
Oh yeah.
There's some really strong ones over Magic's history.
Do you like Dothy Voidwalker?
Oh, I thought we were talking about Dockside. I thought we were just going to talk about Dockside in every Outlaws deck.
There we go. There's 2 great cards.
Hey, any deck I can play Port Razor in and Profit is a fan.
Wait, opposition agent? Okay. Moving on.
Port Razor. Who just doesn't want extra combats?
Me. No, I'm kidding. I love that. So let's talk about cards.
Well, Mikey, we cherry picked a selection of cards from the main set and from the big score, the kind of aftermath set that was turned into a bonus sheet that we want to talk about specifically for the 99. Obviously, none of these cards are legendaries, so obviously none of them can be played as commanders, but these are cards we either like the idea of or we want to put into our own decks, and we're going to kind of just rock through and give our opinions.
Let's do it. So the first one we're going to talk about is Archangel of Tides. This is a 1 colorless, 3 white, 3/5 angel with flying. As long as Archangel of Tides is untapped, creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 colorless mana for each of those creatures. Fantastic ability already. And as long as Archangel of Tides is attacking, creatures can't block unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. Oh, I love this.
Of course,
card.
it's a reprint.
This card.
A very good reprint as well, because I believe it was just printed in Magic Origins. And
just printed, dude. That was like a long time ago.
no, I mean, I think that's the only active printing we had of it was Magic Origins.
Yes, I have one of these.
And it was a $12 to $15 card, so it definitely needed it. Not just for the Angel decks, I'm sure who were very happy to get a cheaper copy of it, but because I think this card plays in so many different archetypes.
Yeah, it can play in every single stack deck you want to. So I mean, just
and it's great. It's great in a deck that cares about attacking because you're forcing your opponent to have to pay to block, which is not something you ever need to do.
There's an attacking commander that's coming to mind, but moving
right.
on.
Most of the time, when you're blocking, you tend to have already been used. You've already used your turn, right? You don't have mana up. Maybe you're saving mana up for a removal spell or something, and now you're being told, oh, if you want to chump block, if you need to chump block, you have to pay 1 for each of them. And I think that's important in a lot of ways because it makes Archangel of Tides, I think, a better card overall.
Yeah.
If it was on tap, your opponents have to pay 1 for each of those creatures. Well, okay, we have Ghostly Prison, we have Propaganda, we have other cards like that. But I think what makes this card even better is that second ability. Forcing your opponents to pay to block is a world of difference because it turns every 1/1 you attack with into a potential threat for your opponent because they now have to pay 1 mana to block it.
For sure.
So now if they even have mana at all, now they have to make an honest decision on what's worth paying a mana to block.
Yeah. That's great.
This, to me, feels a lot like a card like Elishnorn from March of the Machine.
Yep.
Where it says any of your creatures that gets dealt damage, your opponent has a choice. Either, pay a mana or lose 2 life. And kind of giving them a flick in a sense. And it's the same thing of saying, well, you can block all you want to, but congratulations, you have to pay 2 life or pay mana. So
This card's gonna be pretty good. I would love to play a Stacks deck, honestly, and I think this would be fantastic in it, just because it just adds to the madness.
I still think probably the Angel players are happy as well.
For sure.
Get another really key part of one of those decks to be even cheaper.
Yes, for sure.
Next up, we have a fun new bird, and it is an outlaw, so that's always important. Aven Interrupter, a 3-mana 2/2 bird rogue. Flash and flying, always a great combination.
Yeah.
When it ETBs, you exile target spell and it becomes plotted. This is a very interesting ability, but we'll talk about that in a second. And it says spells your opponents cast from graveyards or from exile cost 2 more to cast. It's a really fun 2 set of abilities. The first one is interesting because it's basically going to stop a spell from resolving and put it into plot, meaning it has to be cast on a later turn. They can't recast at that turn, which is really important, especially if somebody's trying to go off. Notice it says target spell, not non-creature spell, not multicolored spell. It's anything.
And it's also at sorcery speed that you have to cast it at a later turn. So you can't just instantly...
And then the second part, expose your opponent's cast from graveyards or from exile, cost 2 more to cast, is a really important ability because this shuts off Discover, this shuts off Cascade, this shuts off a lot of things. Yeah. Especially in our format, that's getting overrun by these types of abilities that are just throwing things into exile to be cast. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It stops plotting. You have to pay 2 more, right, to plot that spell. So it's. I like this card a lot. I like these white, archons and these creatures.
Dude, they're so good. They're so good.
These have effects. To me, I don't look at these as hard stacks pieces because they're only going to hit certain examples. But I think this is also a 2/2. It's not going to be hard to remove if you're really worried about it.
No, but it doesn't die to Orcus Bowmasters, which is nice.
So, I mean, it might take a little bit to get off the field, but again, we're in a format that has a ton of removal. If you're worried about Avian Interrupter, you're going to have removal for it, but it is going to slow your opponent down. And again, I like that 3 mana, you're getting rid of the thing you were worried about, and then they can't recast it.
Right. Now, question, if somebody's, like, overloading a Cyclonic Rift and then I play this, would they be able to overload it again, or no?
So the way that alternate castings work is if you're casting it from exile, you cannot pay the alternate cost. Ooh. So by dumping that into exile, they would be forced to play it for its original cost.
Which would be an extra 2 mana on top of that. Wow, what a great card. I love this in Birds. I love this in...
The Burbs.
And I love this in any deck that has white,
I have
honestly.
a feeling that if you're building a mercenary deck, this goes in there, of course, because it's a rogue, and it's a very good card for its cost. Those are decks that care about attacking, and anything you can get in the air is going to be great.
Yep.
Not only that, but this ability is just really good. I would say if you're going to play the card, just be careful. It is going to shut off all your opponent's things, and so if you play into a couple opponents who really care about this, it's going to get lightning rotted off the table pretty quickly.
That you might get some eyes.
So just know that this might be a 1-turn break from whatever your opponents are trying to do, but if you present this, your opponents are probably going to try to get rid of it. But I've always personally believed that lightning rods can be really good because they take focus away from something else that's really important and put it on something you don't mind giving up for just a couple mana.
If you're really kind of worried about whether or not you want to play this or not, and you're kind of sitting there going, well, I play like mono white and there's not enough like interaction, this is a good interaction piece because essentially this is a counter spell in white.
Yep.
So I mean,
and then it's an attacker. I mean, it's a 2/2 in the air that you then get to have fun. You could always flash us in and use as a blocker if need be. It doesn't have to come in and necessarily. It might. Well, it doesn't have to. There could be no legal target for the spell, which means its ETB trigger would just fall away.
Yeah.
So you could just flash this in to block with it. But I like this a little bit better than something like Brazen Borrower. Brazen Borrower, you can only block creatures with flying. What I like about this is it can just be flashed in as a blocker if you need it to be. I think that's important to talk about because we don't get enough flash creatures in Commander sometimes. I think it's important to talk about flash creatures when we can have them.
No, it's going to be fun to play that in Errant and Giada.
Outlaw, sorry. If you're playing in an Outlaw deck.
Oh, you said Mercenary.
I said Mercenary. I apologize.
It's fine.
Talk about another Outlaw.
Hey, let's talk about a Mercenary, actually. This one is Claim Jumper. It's a 2 colorless, 1 white for a 3/3 Vigilance Rabbit Mercenary. Dude, let me tell you.
It's a Wabbit.
Let me give you a little fun story, okay? I read this card and was like, sweet. Goes in my deck during the draft on Friday. Then played this card, read it again, and was like, hang on. I can get 2 lands, essentially. And I did. And I was so happy. Because that's exactly what this card does. So when Claim Jumper enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you may search your library for a Plains card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then if an opponent controls more lands than you, repeat this process once. If you search your library this way, shuffle.
So off the rip, one thing that's important, this is Plains card and not basic Plains.
Yes.
That makes it even better.
Yep.
You can get Triomes, you can get Shocklands, you can get a lot of things.
This card is amazing.
That makes this almost, this makes it very playable.
Yeah.
In your, in your like Mardu Outlaws piles that are happening, or anything else. I mean, unless you go get dual lands instead of getting just a basic Plains, which is important. And it's okay if that Plains comes in tapped, because it's coming into tapped anyway.
Yep.
So you can go get one of those common duals that has dual typings because it's coming in tapped anyway.
Yeah, this card is incredible. The fact that it also has Vigilance, it's great because you can bring it in. Now you have a good 3/3 blocker, attacker, or anything like that. Great for your Outlaws. Great for your mono whites. I think this is a fantastic card overall for any strategy that you're looking for when you're playing white and you're wanting a little bit more ramp. If you don't have green, of course.
And it's good ranks. Like Knight of the White Orchid's 2 mana, right? And it does just the first effect. You have other cards that are 3 mana and just do the first effect. So like this is really good because you have the potential of getting it twice. And in a game of Commander, you're probably always going to have a green deck that's ahead of you on lands. And if you're on the right table, right, Yuma just came out, you're going to see these landfall decks or these graveyard decks that are going to spit multiple lands out per turn. Well, you're probably going to get 2 lands out of this. Yep. And let's be honest, in a Mardu or a Esper deck that like really needs those lands to get their gameplay on plan, this is going to be really helpful.
Yeah, love this card.
So it's hard to discount how profitable that can be in the right decks. I don't think this goes in every white deck, but I think it goes into a lot of them.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I would probably put it in a lot.
I could see like a mono white life gain deck probably doesn't waste the spot on it because it really doesn't in a deck like that, you're looking at every card gaining you life somehow, or like every card proccing those triggers.
Yeah.
But again, those are corner cases. I think most white decks probably look. Now I'm talking about white, mono white. I think, every Azorius deck may not play this card. It just depends on what your strategy is. It's hard to guess whether any particular 2-color combination is going to play it, because it just comes down to what is your deck trying to do.
That's a good point.
Well, probably the card that I think is going to probably go down as probably one of the most popular in the set, just for what it does, is Final Showdown. The first of the spree cards we're going to talk about this episode. It costs 1 white at minimum to cast it for an instant. Remember, spree, you can pick any of the following effects. You can pick as many as you want. I learned that lesson during my draft. And you can pay for all of them. So the first one is for 1 extra colorless, all creatures lose all abilities until end of turn. For additional colorless, you can choose a creature you control, and it gets indestructible. And then for 3 and 2 white extra, you can destroy all creatures. Fun thing to mention here is, like any modal spell, these will resolve in the order that they're printed. Meaning that if you pay for multiple, they will go off in the order they're printed. The reason I learned this is because I played with that Tumbleweeds during draft, and I realized, wait, I can pay that 4 mana and do both of them. Getting the land and then making that big token. I didn't think about it. I was approaching it from the modal standpoint, where it's like, pick the one you want the most.
Yeah.
But alright, so for 2 mana, you're nuking all creatures of all abilities, which is a brutal ability. I mean, I can think of decks that I have that this would hose immediately. And this is at instant speed. This is a good trick. For 2, you can pick a creature you control to be indestructible, which is actually on par for this ability. It might, depending on what cards you're playing, this could be 1 mana over that, but that's still a good rate for just picking a creature you control to be indestructible. But for 6 mana, this is to destroy all creatures at instant speed.
That's pretty fantastic.
A lot of your instant speed removal for creatures in white are on attack. Or they're on, these different, most of them are on attack, settle the wreckage, things like that. This could be potentially brutal, depending on when you play. And 6 mana is well worth the ability to do it at instant speed.
Yeah, I love that it's a moto spell, because you get to choose whatever you want. I've already seen the whole thing of, like, you make everybody lose ability, then you give your 1 creature that you want to keep, and then you just destroy all of them for, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana, right?
Well, I mean, for 7, right, you're casting the spell, giving a creature you control indestructible, and nuking everything. Mm-hmm. Right? For 8 mana, you could potentially shut off indestructible for all of your opponent's creatures,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Depending on what they have. They have a creature like, let's say they have Avacyn that gives all their permanents indestructible.
True.
Congratulations to their creatures no longer have indestructible.
Yep.
What I'm going to call now, and this is just me being the player I am and playing the decks I play, I think the first mode is going to be more brutal than the other 2.
I agree.
Because there's a lot of decks that really care about creature abilities, and that's going to be brutal. I think about a deck like Jetmir that I play. That whole deck relies on getting Jetmir down at the right time and leveraging Jetmir to win via combat. This card would hose that deck completely.
Right. I'm thinking of, I don't know why my brain's going to Ishin, even though it doesn't, now that I start thinking about it, it's not that great. Like, as soon as they go...
Well, it would.
I mean, as soon as they go...
All your attack triggers are gone, the doubling's gone. I mean, all of it's gone.
Well, that's what I was saying. As soon as they go to combat, you just...
play that before they attack.
And then they just have no attack.
Because the problem is you can't play it in response to the triggers, because the triggers are already on the stack. Right. They don't go away.
That's why I was like...
That's probably the big part with Final Showdown you need to think about, is that once a trigger's on the stack, it doesn't matter if you remove that creature or that ability from that creature, it still goes off. Now, if a creature has an ability like this creature deals its power to target creature, well, if you remove the creature, then it fizzles. But if a creature says, for example, when this creature attacks, gain a life for each attacking creature you control. If you remove the ability from that creature, the ability's still going to go off if it's already on the stack. And so you kind of have to be careful. The brutal part about that could be is if I move the combat and you Final Showdown me, I can just not attack.
Yeah.
But the point is you stop the turn from happening. You might have stopped the big thing from happening and bide yourself a turn or bide the table a turn.
Sorry, I'm thinking of like...
the table a turn.
I'm thinking of cards like that could help you. So like your dash cards, now you don't have to bring them back to your hand. Your blitz cards, now you don't have to sacrifice them.
Dash might be a little bit tough because I think it's a condition on the spell being played. It and blitz are odd. They're odd things.
I know, that's why I was like trying to
layers things are not what we want to get into here.
Yeah, we do not. No, this card's good.
I like your idea, but I think that may not work exactly how we think it does, but I think a lot of things are going to get hosed like you think they will. And that's the important part.
Probably. Losing ability is never a fun thing. So let's double down. That's the next card we're going to talk about.
We always want to double down.
That's the next card.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not sure, double down. Jeez. What's the worst that can happen?
You die.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
Anyways, double down is a 3 colorless mana, 1 blue enchantment. Says, whenever you cast an outlaw spell, copy that spell. Before we go on...
Oh, that's the whole text. I thought there was more.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me to read the flavor text? I don't even know what that says. The best alibi is being in multiple places at the same time.
This card, I think, is going to seem underwhelming to some people, but this is a very good card when you remember what creature types are included. Assassins, mercenaries, and pirates, rogues, warlocks. Out of curiosity, Mikey, are any of those creature types...
Don't you do it.
Really well known for being fairly unblockable or dangerous in combat? Or are any of those creature types well known for doing great things when they enter the battlefield?
What about rogues?
Well, the first dig was to assassins and rogues. The second dig was to dockside specifically.
Yeah,
but,
oh my gosh. So at first I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, they just missed the mark so badly here. Why didn't they put this in black, white, or red to go into the Olivia deck to make everybody super happy? And then I realized... Because that would just be stupid. This is better.
Well, here's the thing. Let's think about this. Assassins, black, blue. Yep. Right? So we're good there. Pirates are either run red, blue, or Grixis. So we're good there. Yep. Rogues, black, blue.
Yep.
So completely good there. We're hitting the 3 main creature types that this really matters. Now, mercenaries, okay, that feels off because the people where people are really going to play mercenaries is these new Mardu Outlaws decks. So that feels like kind of a miss. Warlocks... A lot of them are either in black or blue, so you're gonna kind of already be playing this anyway. If you're playing this in a spell slinging deck, something like, I think if Karavek's not in its own deck, it's probably in some sort of Grixis or pile like that.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So, again, I think the important part is 3 of these creature types are in blue.
Yeah.
Already. Yes, Rakdos Pirates is a thing, but not really. I feel like most people either play Grixis or they play the Izzet piles with Malcolm and Breaches.
I'm sorry, I just keep thinking of cards to play with this now. So, like, Dothy Voidwalker would be fantastic to have 2 of them. You have Opposition Agent.
Still gotta watch the Legendary rule, which is still important.
Well, that's not a Legendary, right?
No, it's not, but I'm just saying you still gotta watch the Legendary rule, right? Like, the card I think of when I think of this is the one that we got in Crimson Vow that doubled zombies. Very similar type card. I think it was when they died, but I could be wrong. But either way, no, Opposition Agent isn't legendary, neither is Douthie. But
I was trying to figure out. It's a rogue, okay.
But I'm saying you got to be careful, right? Because you still have legendary that you have to deal with. But I think more often than not, well worth the 4 mana. It's cheaper than Reflections of Litjara, which is important. Yep. Yes, it only affects certain types, which doesn't make it strictly better. But I think in some ways it does make it good.
It's better than like your Molten Echoes and stuff like that if you're wanting to copy things and in your red, blue, and your Grixis piles.
It's still not better than... Oh, I always forget the name of it. The mirror image? What is it? No.
The mirror with the guy grabbing his neck?
No, the one where you flip a coin when a creature comes in until you lose a flip and you make that many copies.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. And as soon as I find it, I'm going to be like, that thing. Not Cursed Mirror.
I'm going to put this up on the screen when we find it. It's Mirror...
Not Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
No.
Not Besiege the Mirror.
It starts with Mirror, I think.
Mirage.
No, it's a red card. It's a red enchantment.
Mirror March.
Mirror March. That's exactly it. When a creature comes in, you flip a coin until you lose a flip. You call it, and you make that many copies. Like, there are cards that memeingly have higher upsides than this, but I think at the end of the day, this is gonna have a lot of good upside. Yes, it's only on cast, which is important. But to me, the important part is you're copying the spell.
It's fine that it's on cast, because if it gets countered, you're still casting it. So.
Exactly. And because if it was on ETB, then if they countered it, you would have that issue.
Yep.
The only good thing is if you're, like, let's say your commander's an outlaw, you could technically still get double ETBs.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you have an ETB trigger,
still get that kind of thing, which is important. And so I think the card, I think it's sitting like $2-3 right now. I'm sure it'll get better as soon as people use it more, as they put it into more decks.
I think it's a fantastic card.
Well, we'll talk about our bundle promo, which I'm always happy when Wizards actually picks a good bundle promo. Axebane from Carla Manor, I'm looking at you.
I feel like you did not like that.
No, not at all. When equipped creature deals... Oh, sorry, we're talking about Key to the Vault, one in a blue for an equipment, 2 in a blue to equip it. says whenever an equipped creature deals common damage to a player, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may exile a non-land card from among them, put the rest on the bottom, and you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. I got to see in draft that this card is probably good no matter how much damage you end up dealing to somebody.
Oh, okay. I didn't
think about it.
I
I mean, in a draft environment, if you hit a land and you're only dealing 1 damage, it kind of feels bad. But, like, how often are you really ramming into people in Commander with a 1/1? A lot of times you're putting this on your Commander that's a 3/5 in the air with flying or something. Like, a lot of times you're going to... And remember, you're casting it for free, which means if you hit a 10-mana spell, congratulations, you get it for free. Like, this is a card I think is going to catch a lot of people off guard. Yes, you can't cheat this in onto a creature, right? You have to pay the equip cost unless you're putting this in an equipment deck that can get around the equip cost. Like, your opponent's going to see it coming, right? But... I just think about, man, even 2 or 3 cards off the top of your library could change a game.
Yeah. Depending
on where you're at and what you're playing.
This is going to be fantastic in like a Yuriko deck because it says like you get to look at the top card of your library. You may exile it. So let's say like it is a land. You exile it, get it out of the way. Then you do your Yuriko trigger, and then you have your big spell on top to do the more damage. Like this is a fantastic card for those kind of things. I also was starting to think about it in like Voltron decks. And it was like, there's not very many, but still, I was like, how is this going to work that way?
The like deck personally I play, I was looking at this one, and there was 2. The first was a Layla. Like, this feels like a perfect Layla card. A Layla is very difficult to block, being Death Touch and Lifelink. Like, unless your opponent's playing cheap flyers, you're not blocking a Layla. And a lot of Layla decks build around things like Robe of the Arch Magi or something like that to draw cards when it hits. You know, people play Curious Obsession or things like that to draw cards or Curiosity Draw when it hits to deal damage. What I like about it here is there's so many cards in that deck that you still cast it, so you still get the trigger, and it just feels good. The other deck I thought about for this one was a deck that I've been messing around with more recently in Morska.
Yep.
A deck where you want to try to make Morska either hit really hard or make it unblockable. Well, there's been plenty of games I've made Morska unblockable for 6 or 7 damage.
Yep.
Congratulations, that's 6 or 7 cards off the top of your library that you now could just pick something and cast it for free. Again, there's a little bit setup involved. This isn't 5 mana win the game, but like it could get you a long way for just 5 mana into cheating. And remember, this happens every turn. You can move it around to the creatures you want to move it around to. Like, I think this is what I wanted to see from a piece of equipment. The good part is it's a legendary, so it can't be copied. So your opponents can't just absolutely face roll and get 6 copies of this or something crazy like that. But I like it because the decks that can use it are going to be able to use it really well.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Can't wait to see somebody just absolutely obliterate me with it. Next one we're going to talk about is Step Between Worlds. 3 colorless mana and 2 blue for a sorcery that says each player may shuffle their hand and graveyard into their library.
Hard stop.
Nothing else. Each player who does this draws 7 cards. Exile, Step Between Worlds. Now it also has a plot cost of 6 mana, 4 colorless, 2 blue.
So you can plot a card from your hand, remember, and then you can cast it for free at sorcery speed
at a later time. Yeah.
This is a really interesting card.
I mean, it's literally a Windfall, but different.
What I find really interesting about this is it's not a force like Windfall is, and that's what turns off a lot of people,
true.
A lot of opponents towards Windfalls, because it forces you to redraw. What I like about Step Between Worlds...
I just started thinking about... I countered his Windfall and now he's mad. But anyways, moving on.
Still salty.
What's the card that this is like, actually? What is this, like time something?
No, like Time Spiral forces everybody to do it.
No.
So.
Oh, really? I thought it was... Maybe I'm thinking of something. Good, continue, sorry.
Anyway, what I like about this is because in the right game, you're helping your opponents. Like, you're never going to use this to help your opponents, so you're only going to use it to help yourself, but it can masquerade like you're helping your opponents, right?
Yeah.
You're saying, hey guys, if you want to shuffle your graveyard and your hand in, remember, this isn't just your hand. It's not like Windfall where you're pitching your hand. You're shuffling your graveyard back in, which to some decks may actually be really important, right, to get those things back. If somebody's playing a graveyard deck, maybe they've gone too deep and needs to reset, right? But what I like about this is that you're always going to use this to benefit yourself, and if it benefits your opponents, that's great. Who's going to play this? I'd guess probably blue-red Spellslinger decks. Somebody really wants to kind of keep their deck churning, casting more things.
Group Hug.
Group Hug, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to be like a top 100 card on EDH by any means, but I feel like there are going to be commanders who are going to take real advantage of this card. My first thought was something like Nekasar could be kind of fun. You kind of give your opponents that painful choice. Do you really want the new cards, or are you going to let everybody else do it? You can back people into the corner that way, but I really think this is going to be something good in like those, if you're playing the like Teferi Planeswalkers where you draw a card or you get a counter on it anytime you draw a card, or if you have cards that care about when you draw cards, this is just going to be an easy 7 triggers of that. And then, heck, maybe your opponents do it too. I like this. I mean, it's not going to be, like I said, it's not going to be turbo played. It's a $1 card, and I expect it to stay that way. Maybe even less.
You can play this with Hullbreacher. Oh, wait, never mind.
Yeah, Hullbreacher, though. I like it. Again, what I like about this is it's an interesting type of design. You know, a lot of people don't like, Wheel of Misfortune, the one where you pick the life and then you pay it and then it's all wonky. People got all on that card because it got broken, but it's a fun idea for a card, and I think this one's the same.
Yeah. Same with this one.
Binding Negotiation. 1 and a black, 2 mana for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, they discard it. Otherwise, you can put a face-up exiled card they own into their graveyard. Intriguing, right? So this is what a lot of people are going to read. They're going to go, oh, this is Thoughtseize, which I guess in a sense it is. For 1 more mana, this is an uncommon Thoughtseize. But this can hit plot cards, but there's a lot of other things this can hit. This could hit cards you get off of Prosper, cards you get off of cards like Prosper or Rocco.
Yeah.
You know, this could hit a lot of things. You know, Jessica's Will, if they're saving them until their next turn.
Yeah.
You know, these, again, this is a little bit more narrow, but I feel like if you're already in a deck that cares about discarding your opponent's things, this is just upside.
Yeah, of course I put this up here because I already put this in Tiny Bones. I got to play this card on Friday, and I got to do both modes, which was nice. Not in the same game, not in the same turn, not in the same cast, but just that night. And I saw nothing but upside from the card, and it's only 2 mana. It's at sorcery speed, yes, but, I mean, whoop-de-doo.
I think when we talk about Thoughtseize and Surgical Extraction and all these type of cards, it's really hard to not discount the fact that you get to look at your opponent's hand, which is really
and
important.
That's the biggest thing I love.
Because let's be honest, if you're honestly in a game where you're worried about somebody and you're worried about what position they're in, looking at their hand is a really important knowledge.
Like if somebody just drew 7 fresh cards.
Think about it, right? Let's say that I'm setting up my board. Mikey and I are at a table together, and I'm setting up my board, and Mikey goes, okay, he's starting to set up some pieces. I wonder if he has it. And he thought seizes me just to look at my hand. Well, he's going to know if I have it or not. And he's going to know where I'm headed.
Right.
If he's smart enough, he's going to know. Now, a new player may thought sees someone and pick the wrong card because they don't know what they're looking at. But I think a more well-experienced player is going to look at someone's hand and go, they don't have it yet. And I have that knowledge. They don't, maybe they know or don't know that I have that knowledge, but it's good to know, right? Like if someone puts out a pretty common half of a combo, you may want to take a shot at somebody's hand just to see if they have the other half of it and couldn't deploy it. Because I think a lot of times people may not be able to deploy their whole combo at once, and they run one half of it out thinking, oh, it's an enchantment, it's safe, or oh, this is safe. Not realizing
you're never safe.
The other half of it may not be safe. So I like this card a lot. It's a 10-cent card. It's probably going to stay that way. But again, if you're in a card that cares about, a deck that cares about discarding people's cards, but this may even become a good card in any deck that you care about.
I was about to say, it's also, now that we see this other mechanic called crime, it's also a crime. So, I mean, like, that's a thing now that we have to kind of, like, pay attention to.
I think hand removal isn't played enough. I get it because a lot of decks don't pay it off. But if you're in black, I mean, hand removal can be really good. Now, the problem is, the problem with Thoughtseize, right, and Duress and Surgical Extraction is you have to know who to target with them, right?
Yeah. You
get kind of punished if you pick the wrong player. But that can also come with an upside, meaning if you know who to pick, you can really use it well. It's kind of it could be just as good as a Vanishing Verse or a Baleful Master because you could hit the right thing out of their hand. I think that's things we don't talk about enough in our format.
I will say,
right? I got the privilege of playing a game against Tiny Bones.
Yeah.
And I realized very quickly that you were taking things out of my hand, but you couldn't take them out quickly enough for me to still get pieces on the board.
Yeah.
Right? And that's part of the problem, I think, just like Mill. These discard decks have this problem, which is that you either need to go all in on the person you fear the most, or you may not be able to stop things from happening.
I'm learning more and more with that deck how to not necessarily pick and choose. Well, actually, yeah. It's kind of pick and choose. Like, everybody knows, I think now, since I've played it like 3 times in one night, and I feel like became the villain that night because of it, but that's fine. I think everybody knows that, okay, what that strategy is doing, even if they go, okay, he's going to try to get that 6 mana play or make everybody lose 10 life. Of course, like, duh, that's why you play Lathril. You play Lathril so you can make everybody lose life too. But what I'm noticing more and more with the deck is, like, it's almost become more of a politics style of, like, hey, how many cards are in your hand? Cool, you have a lot. All right, I'm not going to worry about you. Just don't play anything to hurt me. All right? And I'm going to go get the guy who's only got, like, 2 cards in their hand. So I'm starting to realize that more. I actually did that a couple weekends ago or something like that. Like last weekend, actually, playing a 3-player game with our friends.
I know you had a couple of scenarios in the game we played together, or the couple of games in a row I played against Tiny Bones. You know, you'd ask the table who had cards in their hand, and you were trying to spread the love. But I mean, there was a couple of scenarios where I had 4 or 5 cards in the hand, and you knew you were going to target me because you saw the decks I was playing. You know, or you knew I was probably holding something, especially turn 3 or 4. You know, people are only able to really deploy what they can, and they're holding things for later. Like, you know, those are the perfect turns to just take a shot at someone, take a flyer on one of these cards, and just say, what's in your hand? What am I looking at? Because it can really make or break a game for you to know what's in my hand, especially, right? Let's say that you're not using this. You're using just straight discard. You tell me I have to pitch 2 cards. You know that now I have a really painful choice if I have 3 cards in my hand or I have 4 cards in my hand. I'm not always going to have spare lands to... Turn 4, you're not going to have a bunch of spare lands in your hand to chuck around.
No.
Like you would on turn 9 or 10 where you're drawing a bunch of cards, right? So those can be equally as brutal, but again, I like the idea of looking at your opponent's hand. You get the choice. Like so what I like about this card and a lot of them is you get the choice of the card, but here you get the choice to just not do it. You can just say, I'm just going to look at your hand. Congratulations, I know what's in your hand now. And now I know how to maneuver around you at least for a turn. And I feel like that's important information to have. I know that I'm a broken record now, but it's true. It's important information to have, and it should be something you value.
Card's good. Card is good. Caustic Bronco is a 1-colorless black mana.
2/2, love this type line.
Yeah, for a 2/2 creature, Snake Horse Mount. Whenever Caustic Bronco, I think I'm saying that right, attacks, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. You lose life equal to the card's mana value if Caustic Bronco isn't saddled. Otherwise, each opponent loses that much life. This card's amazing. Yeah,
I mean, I think, again, this is an example just like we talked about with Claim Jumper, where this doesn't go in every black deck, but this probably goes in a good amount of them.
It's essentially card draw and making opponents lose life. It's fantastic.
I mean, I view this the same way I view something like Twilight Prophet, where like there's a lot of scenarios where it's really good, and then occasionally you're just gonna miss. But what the only thing that makes this slightly more difficult is that you gotta make sure you saddle it. Other than that, I think it's pure upside. It's a 2-mana 2/2, which is already great for its rate.
Value.
It could get you a card, which if you're playing a low to the ground deck, like most of the snake decks, they're not very big mana. Same thing with, I doubt there's any actual horse decks outside of the Boros Shadowfax. Yeah. So, to me, I look at this card for your like good like value mono black decks, the Gixes, the Massacre Girl from Mirza Carla Mana that gives everything Wither, that you just want to play these really good value black cards.
Yeah, this card would be awesome.
Like, this is great for that kind of deck because you're just getting everything you'd want from your 2 mana, and if your opponent kills it, cool, I spent 2 mana on a 2/2. You know?
Not only that, like, I mean, if you just are looking to draw a card, you just immediately attack with it, it dies, whoop-de-doo, you still got the attack.
And again, here's an example of a card that's not going to be very expensive. There's going to be a 50-cent rare, and they're going to be out there, and if your deck can use it, these are the kind of cards you game on because they're going to be cheap. But we'll move to a card which is going to stay pretty inexpensive and is going to be really accessible to a card that will probably sneak up a little bit more in price just for what it does. And that's Insatiable Avarice, the next spree card we're going to talk about. 1 black minimum for a sorcery spree that says for 2 extra mana, you can search your library for a card and put that card on top. And then for double black, target player draws 3 cards and loses 3 life.
It's a pretty good card.
Mikey, this isn't Demonic Tutor.
No.
It's not Vamp Tutor. It's not Diabolic Intent.
No.
By any means. But this is a versatile card that can do you a lot. For 3 mana, this either gets a card of your choice and puts it on top, and maybe you can find a way to draw it, or you set yourself up for next turn. Or for 3 mana, you draw 3 and lose 3 life. Or you force a player to draw 3 and lose 3 life. And then any of the triggers you have on top of that. I mean, obviously something like Shieldred probably plays this for free.
Shieldred, right? Because
you're forcing someone to lose 9 life, basically.
For 3 mana, scenario. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But those decks love this because there's an option.
Yeah.
You either pay 3 and get something of your choice on top, and maybe you find a way to draw it. You know, maybe something like I don't think Griselbrand isn't banned in our format, so you could use it to put oh no, I'm thinking Necropotence.
Yeah, Griselbrand is, but I was like, wait a minute, yes it is.
Necropotence. You can load up a Necropotence trigger with
Yeah.
this if you needed to.
Oh, yeah.
You know, again, I'm just spitballing here, but my point is that like there's a lot of ways that I think this card goes really well. Is it a staple? No. I mean, it's a good card, and I think it will see a lot of play. But I think to me it's a more fair of a tutor because it puts it on top and not into hand. It gives your opponents time to react or time to deal with it.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about it is it is sorcery speed. If it was at instant speed, I'd be all over this.
Yeah, but man, there's a lot of decks that probably just set up a turn by doing this first, playing a cheap draw. And like in a Grixis Spells deck, this isn't that big of a deal. Or a Rakdos deck where think about this on a Prosper deck. In your main phase, you do this in your main phase. Pay 3, put a card you want to exile, Prosper on the top. End of turn, Prosper exiles it. Congratulations, now you have the card you wanted.
Value.
Listen to a Jessica's will. I'm just saying, there's other ways that you can...
Let's get out of here. Okay,
oh my god, wait, you mean I found the 2 exact corner cases where that was kept going? But my point is, like, the card's good. It's not, like...
the best.
S tier, the best card I've ever seen, but, like, it's going to keep a price tag because I think it's good at what it does.
Let's talk about the best card I've
ever seen. Let's talk about a card that's not going to keep a price tag that I'm really happy about.
Alright, let's talk about Hell to Pay. It's X. I don't know why I did a circle. I meant to do X. In red for a sorcery that says Hell to Pay deals X damage to target creature. Create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to the amount of excess, not X, but XS damage dealt to that creature this way.
2 thoughts right away.
Go ahead, because this card's amazing.
Off the rip. What I love about the way this is worded is it allows you to use those fire emancipations, those dictated the gods, to make this more damage and get more treasures.
See, that's exactly where I was about to go, yeah.
And so I really love that. Number 2, depending on what kind of deck you're playing, this is more than worth throwing as much mana as you can into X because you're just going to get profit.
Yep.
If you're playing a deck that doubles tokens, congratulations, you got 2x minus whatever the toughness of the creature was in treasures, right? Or x minus that.
Number.
Times 2.
Value.
Algebra. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I really like about this. If you're in a deck that cares about treasures at all, this is better than some other removal that you have if you have the mana laying around. Like the Galazath decks out here probably absolutely love this card because you just dump your entire turn into removing a 1/1 and just netting all that profit.
Right.
I've already told you the deck that I'm excited to put this card in.
Which is?
Ovika.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Because in Ovika, this is X+1 goblins plus this ability, giving you that many treasures, and you're out way more than you put into this spell. But that's a corner case example where Ovika specifically loves this card as removal. But I'm thinking about Galazath. There's so many...
I'm thinking Magda.
There's so many Izzet decks Izzet spells decks that care about treasures now. Breaches. So many other ones, right? Yeah. Magda, both the Magdas probably really love this card because you get the bonus back from... And right, both the Magdas don't need to tap the treasures in order to use that ability. Yeah. Again, this is a red card that I think, yes, it's situational. It depends on whether your opponents have the right creatures. But again...
You'll find the right creature.
Coming from the guy who plays token decks, there's always a token that's laying around that you can nuke with this card.
There's a commander that I think that's going to go under the radar constantly. It's a mono-red commander. I bet you, if I say the name, you don't even know who it is. It's Imodane from Eldraine, the new Eldraine. She says that if you cast a spell that does damage and it targets one creature, it does that amount of damage to each opponent as well. That's fantastic for. Or this is.
And that's what this is here for, right? This Electro Dominance, these red spells that just or Banefire. These things that just nuke something in specific. Again, I don't mind that this hits only a creature because again, you could pick something random. And you're just going to get all those treasures. And if you're in a deck that cares about treasures, congratulations, you got a bunch of treasures. Yeah. And if you're in a deck that doesn't, like I used this once or twice in pre-release and just netted 4 mana. And I mean, 4 mana goes a long way.
This next one, we don't have to go very hard on this one, but let's go for it.
This is a card I absolutely love. And I don't think people talk about enough because I think it's a really good card. And that's Hellspur Posse Boss. Mm-hmm. A 4 mana lizard rogue 2/4, so it is an outlaw. And it matters because its ability says other outlaws you control have haste.
Yes.
And whenever it ETBs, you make 2 1/1 red mercenaries with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Actually, only as a sorcery. The mercenary effect. I think this card is really good because if you're playing an Outlaws deck, this card is just top tier.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what comes in. The tokens it makes get haste. It doesn't get haste, which is fine. But think about it. If you're making mercenary tokens or you're making other tokens of those types, congratulations, they have haste.
Yep.
But not only that, but like everything else you play has haste. They can tap for their abilities. They can do good things. Like this, this is in the main set, right? So if you bought that Olivia deck, or if you're building Vihan, or if you're building some of those style decks, this is I think to me an auto include.
Yes, for sure.
Because it just gives your entire board haste.
I'm playing a Vial Smasher deck on Arena. You'll probably see a video of that at some point, or you already did. And I play this.
Probably really great there.
Oh yeah, it's 3 triggers. It's 3 triggers right there.
This I think pairs really well with At Knife Point, a card we're not going to talk about in this episode, but a card I think is going to be undervalued.
Yeah.
Because it gives all your outlaws first strike on your turn.
Good card.
Meaning all your 1/1s have first strike. They're a little bit harder to chump block. If you have 2/2s, they're a little bit harder to chump block.
You can somehow give them Death Touch. I mean, first strike and Death Touch is best.
But again, this is not going to be an expensive card, but I think in the right decks, it's going to be really well used. And those are the cards, personally, I want to see. I don't know about you, but I love cards that it's like, man, in this specific deck, this is a slam dunk.
No, this is why I put some of these cards on here. You can go ahead and just tee this one up. This is like your favorite card.
I absolutely love this card.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Other than Hell to Pay, which was the auto include.
Or do you want me to tee you up?
Tee me up, because I got to prepare my 20-minute dissertation.
Let's go. We're already like 50 minutes in. Let's get it. All right, this one is Great Train Heist. This is 1 red, possibly more, for an instant spree card.
Well, it has to be more. Number spree, you have to pay for at least 1.
You have to?
Yes.
I thought you could only pay, or you didn't have to, and just add to the storm count.
No, a spree card, you have to pay for 1 of them.
Where does it say you have to?
Choose 1 or more additional costs.
It's not a may.
Yeah, it's not a may.
You have to. Got it. All right. So, anyways, moving on. Spree plus 2 colorless, 1 red. You can untap all creatures you control. If it's your combat phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. That's a lot of phases. Plus 2 colorless mana. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end turn. We talked about how that is. And then plus red, choose target opponent. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to that player, create a tapped treasure token. This card's good.
I don't know where to start. I mean, like, pick any of those 3 abilities and I can tell you why it's brutal, especially to instant speed.
There's a Jeskai commander I'm thinking about.
For 4 mana, you get another combat, which, believe me, in any deck where you'd want to play this and take extra combats, yeah, that's not going to be beneficial at all.
Nah.
For 3 mana, instant speed, you get to give all your creatures first strike, which, remember, doesn't have to just be on your turn. You could take a massive block on your opponents and give them first strike, or... If you pair first strike and trample together, congratulations, you're probably doing something fun.
You're winning!
And then this, at minimum, for 2 red mana, you can say, hey, I'm going to swing my entire board at somebody who can't block and make that many treasures. There's no downside to this card, in my opinion.
No, there's not. Other than the fact that I misread it.
Unless you're in a deck where you can't hit somebody in combat at all, which my question would be, why are you playing this card? Like, in a deck that cares about attacking, I don't see a downside to this card.
It's an instant speed. It's so good.
And I think it's criminal this card's only $2 at the moment because this card is brutal.
I need this
it's
card to
so
stay at $2
good.
so I can buy it real quick.
If Jetmir didn't already give creatures double strike, this would be an absolute slam dunk in that deck.
Yeah. No.
I mean, it'd be a real shame if I couldn't find another way to give another combat. But anyway,
I'm trying to think. Like, so you got 3, 4, 6, 7. I mean, you put it in Ovika.
But again, here's my point. If you're playing any red deck that cares about attacking, you honestly might need to justify me why you're not playing this card. Seriously.
I know a certain Jeskai deck that would love this card.
But I'm serious. If you're in a red deck that cares about attacking, I would love to have a conversation with you about why you're not playing this card. Because I don't see a scenario where this card isn't good. For 2 mana, it's crazy if you're swinging into somebody. For 3 mana, you're probably winning a combat and not getting chump blocked efficiently. If your opponents might think they might be trading, congratulations. For 3 mana, they're no longer trading. And for 4 mana, you may just win the game on the spot, depending on what the board state is.
This card's good.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't go above $2. I hope that everyone that wants a great train heist gets one. But,
I see what you did there. Nice.
It is what it is. But, like, again, I love this card. It might honestly be one of my favorite cards from the set, just because I look at the card and I go, where's the downside?
There's none.
The only downside is I'm forced to pick one. You're right. If I wasn't forced to pick one, I just cast this for a single red and up the storm count. But, like, Mike, I'm trying to figure out where the downside is. I can't find one.
There's not. This card is cool.
It's the corporate, corporate wants you to find the difference between these 2 pictures, and, like, there isn't one. Well, the card that a lot of people have told me they don't get why it's good, and I've looked at them sideways, is Slipshot Show Off. A 2 mana 1/2 flying
awesome.
ace. Bird Wizard. Wizard is actually really important. I'll point out why in a second.
It's a wizard.
Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Remember, this is a flying haste creature, and you can plot it for 1 in a red. This card is great for 2 reasons. One, it's effectively prowess, which is important. There are no good prowess creatures that can't be taken advantage of here. The second part, it is a wizard, and that matters for 2 reasons. One, if you're playing a wizard's deck, congratulations, you got a wizard that's probably better than the worst wizard in your deck. Please swap this out. If you're playing a Nala Wizards, congratulations.
You're playing Favorite Wizards.
You got a wizard that was better than the wizard that was in your deck. And number 2, if you're playing Harmonic Prodigy, congratulations, +4/+0 every time you cast a spell is going to get brutal. Pair that with something like Balmor, and congratulations, you've now built an Izzet deck. This is going to just stomp over your opponents quicker than they know what to do with. If you haven't figured out where I can't wait to play this card in Arena, that's where it is.
I feel like you have some strong...
I have not thought about this at all.
some strong opinions on this.
There are not multiple whiteboards that you cannot see where I've thought about this. Now, again, think about this. This is a prowess trigger that is just going to get good.
Yeah.
And it's in the air, so it's already going to be hard enough for your opponents to block it.
I don't know why you would plot it, ever.
My only thought about plotting is, remember, it does have haste. So you could bring it down at the right time.
But it's at sorcery speed, so it's like if you can instantly, but...
Yeah, but I mean, if you start your turn by plotting this, like playing this from plot, and then go off on like an arcane bombardment, you kind of get around some removal in a sense, because you could try to throw this out when your opponents can't interact with it.
That's a good point.
Or, board wipe. Throw this out after a board wipe. Yeah. Congratulations.
You have
free real estate?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Money.
Again, this is just one of those cards where like, it's $15. And like, should it be $15? Probably not. But
it's basically Ledger Shredder back when Ledger Shredder just
came out. It'd be a good
out,
card.
but it is good.
It's going to be played in Standard. It's going to be played in Pioneer, I'm sure. It's going to be played in a lot of these, in a lot of Commander decks, I'm sure. This is a card that we're going to see a lot of play. I hope the price drops, otherwise people are going to be a little big mad.
A little big mad.
Just slightly big mad.
Let's talk about a little big dude that I swear if I see one of these in my house, I may burn down.
We're going to talk about the next rare red dragon that Mad Wizards is printing. Because there's one in every set.
Terror the Peaks.
No,
he's
a mythic.
The Goldspan.
Yeah, not wrong.
Okay, anyways, this is, I almost said Outlaws of Thunder Junction. This is Stingerback Terror for 2 colorless, 2 red for a 7/7.
Scorpion Dragon.
Scorpion Dragon.
It's a better.
Okay. It's got flying. It's got flample, because it's got the flying and the trample. Stingerback Dragon gets -1/-1 for each card in your hand. You can also plot it for 2 colorless and 1 red. See the plot here, I get it. It makes more sense because you can like plot it, then you start all your spells out, then bring it in and be like, haha, I have a 7/7 for 3 mana.
It's got that, what is it, the Shadow of Mortality, that like -1/-1 for each card. The creature starts big, but gets, like Death Shadow, starts big and gets weaker the more something you have. Yeah. My thing is, if you an empty hand, this is a 7/7 that you put down for 4 mana. I mean, in a red deck where you're not pairing this with a color where you're drawing a ton of cards,
right,
this is going to be a tough card to deal with. Is it Goldspan Dragon? No, not by any means. But I think in the right decks, this is going to come down at the right time.
This and the limited format that we just played in, I saw it come down a couple times, and I felt bad for the player that was playing against it. I didn't have to, thank the goodness, because I would have just countered it immediately or thrown it away with a removal. But hearing I'm going to cast this for 4 mana, and then it becomes a 5/5, a 6/6, or even a 7/7. A 5/5 alone, terrible. 4/4 alone, terrible.
It's a real shame it's not an outlaw. I feel like it could be.
Get out of here. Moving on. These red cards are
next
crazy.
We're getting into the best color, green, obviously. I had to throw that in there just to see what you'd say.
It's still black. I'm kidding.
Well, talk about.
It was me.
About what might be tied for my favorite card in the set.
Here we go again. Gold Vein, Gold Vine, Gold Vein, Golden Eye. Gold Vein Hydra is X, and a green for a creature Hydra.
0/0.
Well, I mean, it dead. Don't pay 0 for it. Anyways, Vigilance, Trample, Haste. Why?
Can we stop there?
No.
Trample, Haste. Continue.
This is worse than Questing Beast. Anyways.
It's still not, and that's the great part.
Anyways. Actually, this is better than Questing Beast because it's not a legendary. Moving on. I almost said Golden Eye. Gold Vein Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, obviously. Then when Gold Vein Hydra dies, create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to its power.
First off, before we say
stupid.
anything, I love Hydras. Okay, I've always loved Hydras. They're my favorite mono green creature type, and I love hasty Hydras.
This card is stupid, man.
It's so good. What I love most about this card is if this trades into something, you just get the mana back. Like,
yay.
Like in limited,
I hate this kind
I
of
had
card.
I had a game where I put like 4 mana into this card and just attacked in, and my opponent blocked with a 3/3, and I just got 3 of the mana back. You know what I mean? It's like, cool,
Thanks.
okay, I dealt with the problem. I mean,
Am I the problem?
The deck I'm clearly waiting to put this in is my Magus Tyrannid / Hydras deck, because when she makes copies of this, they all come in with haste. Friends don't let friends play Teamer Hydras. Anyway,
I'm moving on from that. This one's cool.
What is probably tied for my favorite card in the set, because it goes in one of my favorite decks of all time, is Railway Brawler, a 5-mana 5/5 Rhino Warrior.
It's a Rhino.
Love that it's a Rhino. Reach and Trample. Why we needed those two together is beyond me.
Why does it have reach? It's a Rhino.
Whenever another creature ETBs out of your control, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is its power, and you could plot it for 3 and green. God, I love this card.
I hate these cards. Putting them in this hurt my head.
I love mono green.
Hurt my head.
Srock Goreclaw is probably one of my favorite decks I get to play so sparingly.
Is this creature going in there?
And this card is a snap add to that deck. This is also an add to probably most Power Matters decks. If you have a deck that cares about really anything about attacking, they're really good. The deck I see this being really good in, I know it's kind of random, is something like Xenagos or something like Henzi.
I was thinking Vorinclex.
Where you're trying to put creatures in and attack with them the turn they come in. You're kind of already giving them a buff.
Yep.
And then congratulations, you get more. Also, Mikey, you may not have caught this, and I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge this.
You get out.
You know that this doesn't say non-token.
Get out. Get out.
Get out. Get out. It's my house. I
don't care. Get out.
It doesn't say non-token, and I feel like that's important.
That's it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll go home now. I hate this card.
God, that's good.
It hurt my head putting it in. Hurt my head.
Well, it's one. Like, no.
Alright, this one's cool. Form of Posse is X. I feel like I got all the X spells. It's pretty cool. Red and a white for a sorcery that says create X 1/1 red mercenary creature tokens with the whole mercenary thing that says tap target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate it only as a sorcerer. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh. No wonder it didn't work the way I wanted
On
it
the
to.
count of 3, where does it go? 1, 2, 3, Jenny Faye. And that's why I'm going to keep saying that.
I'm not going to say who I was going to say. It wasn't going to be the big cat boy, but okay, moving on.
Actually, it doesn't even go in Gemir, and that's the scary part. But anyway, we'll move into that in a future episode. I love X spells, especially token X spells, where you get to really profit. Because the cool part, specifically about Jenny Faye, if you don't mind me setting up my soapbox for a second, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just telling you I'm going to do it. Is there, remember in Magic the Gathering, when you go to create a token that gets an ability added to it, and you choose another ability to replace it with a different token, it still gets the ability. Meaning that with Jenny Faye, you can either create these whole 2/2 cats or 3/1 dogs. Anyway, Mike, what were you going to say?
Just put this in Winota and hate your life. Moving on, I'm done.
No, we need to stop there. Let him cook. We need to stop.
We're going on. I'm moving
I love
on.
this card. It's an uncommon. It's probably going to be 5 cents.
We're moving on. We're speed running through the goals. I'm done.
The set included a cycle of enchantments called X Joins Up, kind of similar to the Oath of Gideon or Oath of Liliana, they did for the Gatewatch. The one we're going to talk about is Kellen Joins Up. This is a Bant colored enchantment, green, blue, and white. For a legendary enchantment, when it ETBs, you may exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less from your hand. If you do, it becomes plotted. Kind of an interesting ability. And whenever a legendary creature ETBs under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So, Mike, this is an interesting combo, right? You get a free cast, potentially, in your hand, and then it becomes kind of a Cathar's Crusade, but only for legendaries.
Put it in Joda. Have a good time.
Yeah, out of curiosity, Mike, are there any commanders that really care about legendaries?
Put it in Joda. Have a good time.
What's Tulane up to these days? Do you think he cares about that?
Put it in Joda. Have a good time. Put it in Tulane, too. Put it in everybody.
Put it in Aragorn. 4-color Aragorn that cares about the colors. Yeah, that's where I first thought about these join-up cards. I was like, those are multiple mana symbols.
That's true.
Like, let's be honest, I don't really like Annie Joins Up very much. I think it's a good card. It falls a little bit flat most of the time. But it has 3 colors on it, so...
Aragorn's good. Aragorn is really good.
It's decent, and that's important.
The fact that they didn't make him 5-color just for the heck of it, I don't know.
I'm not going to make that joke. Anyway, not going to make the joke. Good card. I mean, it's probably not going to be a $5 card by any means, but I think in the right deck, this is going to be a really good card.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, Mikey, we'll move on to a card that, for some reason, is on this list. I'm intrigued to find out why.
Yeah, because I wanted to see what you would do with this. So it is Seraphic Steed, green and white for a 2/2 first strike, lifelinking unicorn mount. It says whenever Seraphic Steed attacks while saddled, create a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. It has saddle 4.
I mean, other than losing a game in draft to this, which was really fun, by the way.
There you go.
I don't think the card's unplayable. Remember, there are unicorn decks that exist, and they're actually not bad.
Exactly.
Anyway, I see this probably...
Wait, I'm sorry, unicorn on top of a unicorn just trying to ride. I'm sorry.
I think the one deck where this probably makes... This decks where this makes a ton of sense are in the, like, Abzin or Selesnya life gain piles, where you probably really care about this. And you're probably going to use it to really good effect. First strike lifelink is a good combination because it means you're going to always gain the life whether they kill this or not in combat. And I mean, it replaces itself at minimum if you saddle it because of the 3/3.
Yep.
And there's no decks that gain life whenever a creature comes in, or gain life an angel comes in, or gain life equal to an angel's toughness when it comes in.
Now,
or put counters on a creature when it comes in. There's none of these cards. I mean,
there's no way to exploit the fact that you get one creature and then you could get multiple creatures. You know, I'm talking like O'Hare of the white O'Hare. You could do...
Again, I don't think it's like the best card I've ever seen, but I think, again, here's another example. It's the right card in the right deck.
Not Phyrexian Mommy, the other one. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it's a fun little card. I put it in there just to kind of like say something different rather than being like, oh, it's the same card that everybody else is talking about. This is something new. You can
Rakdos the muscle? Let's
get out of here. No, this is something new, something different. I thought it was really cool to talk about because it is a better little thing.
Well,
this one's cool.
Let's talk about our last card from the main set, and kind of intriguing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And is it instant, red and blue? For an instant, says it deals 2 damage to any target, and if you cast on a spell this turn, you draw a card. I believe that is Stella Lee on the card, if I recall correctly, in the card.
Probably.
Interesting for 2 reasons, right? One, you have this whole Izzet archetype that cares about casting your second spell, meaning that this is your second spell. It is any target, which is important because if you're playing those Fire Emancipations or City on Fires or things like that, well, not City on Fire because it's like creatures, but Fairy Emancipation, O'Hare Axonil, Torbrand, whatever have you.
All the other
this would deal some half decent damage, and it's always going to, well, hopefully it's always going to draw you a card.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it doesn't end the world, but I think it's an interesting card nonetheless.
No, I thought it was really cool. Again, something new, something different. It is a very simple card. You don't have to add it to every single deck. It is like you can find some corner cases to put them in there and whatnot. But I think it's good. I think it's good enough to play in a deck where you are going to cast multiple spells, or you want to draw cards, or where you want to do damage, and you're doing all of this here. There's a card from Fate Reforged that does something very similar to this. It's called Cunning Strike, and it does, I think, 3 damage, and then you draw a card. But it's like 5 mana.
If you're a degenerate like me, this would not be a half-decent card to throw underneath an Arcane Bombardment to just, get a couple damage and draw a card in return.
Why
you didn't hear that from me.
Why do I talk with you?
Because I make content of this channel.
Let's talk about
all right.
Let's talk about the big score stuff. We're gonna move into World Walker Helm. It's like a helmet, cool thing. All right. Anyways, 2 colorless, 1 blue for an artifact that reads: if you would create 1 or more artifact tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional map token. And the map is an artifact.
A fartifact?
What did I just say?
In fartifact. That was the best way to say it.
An artifact that reads, you can pay 1 colorless, tap it, sacrifice it, and then target creature you control explores, and explores a whole other thing, because, they had to do that. Anyways, then you can pay 1 colorless, 1 blue, and create a token that's a copy of a target artifact token you control. Create a copy of a map token, create a copy of a clue, treasure, food. What else am I missing?
I think there's a lot of decks this goes into pretty much off the rip. The deck I had, well, at the time that the set came out, that's where they came out was Urza. But you think about it, Galazeth loves a card like this, Brutaclad loves a card like this because you're making more artifact tokens. But it's not just that. The deck I have now that I was thinking of putting this in was Morska again.
Yep.
A deck that makes clue tokens, and so every turn when you're investigating at the start of your turn, you're also making a map. Remember, a map is a card where you get to look at that top card of your library, and you either put it in your hand if it's a land, or put a counter on a creature, and that's a deck that cares about counters. This is one of those cards that I don't think is going to be in every blue deck by any means, but if you're in a blue deck that cares about making artifact tokens, which is probably a solid amount of them, like, this is just a good card, because the map is just an honest upside.
Yeah.
It's card draw in a sense. It helps you get through your deck. It's effectively a scry, really, if you think about it.
But better.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a land, it goes to your hand. If it's not a land, you get your choice. Do you want it or bin it? I like this card. It's 3 mana to get it down. You get its ability immediately. You can tap it to make a copy of something, which is important depending on what kind of deck you're playing. Card's sitting at about $4 right now, which I think is fair for what it does. I like this because it's going to be a way for people to really take advantage of artifact tokens in a way that I think is really fun. It's not limited to once per turn, which is great. So if you are playing something like Third Path Iconoclast and you're Izzet Spellsinging deck, so you're going to get a map and that soldier every time you cast. If you're playing, if you're playing those Urza decks where you're making constructs, you're getting one of these maps every time you do that. Those Galazeth, those treasure decks, you're getting a map every time you get a treasure. Like these are important abilities that it may not seem super flashy on first read, but I think when you see one of these on the battlefield, you're going to understand why this is pretty darn good.
Card is good.
I mean, it seems decent. I feel like that's enough reason to give it a shot.
To talk about it, yeah. Let's talk about a good card. Molten Duplication is a 1 colorless, 1 red sorcery that reads, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. So it's an artifact if it's an artifact. Anyways, it gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next in step.
I can't think
a
of a single way this is good. I mean, there are no creatures or artifacts you'd want to make a copy of, especially not giving them haste. So I don't know why this would be good, Mikey.
We just talked about one.
No, not at all.
This card's good.
Not good at all. You should definitely sell me every copy of Molten Duplication you have for $1. No, I was kidding. This card is really good. I think, again, in all of the decks that care about creatures in red, like this Twinferno.
Most of them, yeah.
This Twinferno type effect is always going to be good. Make a copy of a creature, give it haste, is always going to be good. Obviously, the caveat: don't pick a legendary creature unless you have a way to get rid of the legendary roll. But if you're in a red deck that cares about creatures, red green, red blue, red white, 3 color.
You want to play Krakushima?
This is probably just really good.
This card would be awesome.
Why does my mind immediately go to Gruul decks where this would just be really good?
Oh, because there's a card that we are about to talk about that would be amazing to be copied.
There would not be a single green card in the big score that I really want to talk about.
Let's set it up.
Well, I mean, probably my pick for... It's only going in 2 decks, which I feel like seems like a really big number to some people, but a really small number to me. But a card that I'm really excited to talk about is Vaultborn Tyrant, a 7-mana 6/6 dinosaur, which to some people are going to be like, Timmy, trample.
Just change your name now.
Whenever Vaultborn Tyrant or another creature with power 4 or greater ETBs under your control, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Friends, gain 3 life and draw a card. 3 life and the card. Not just the card, but, Garrett's Uprising, all those others are just card gain. But that's not it. That's not all the text, friends. Whenever it dies, if it's not a token, you create a token that's a copy of it. Except it's an artifact addition to its other types. Gotta love this card. It goes in Goreclaw. It goes in Pants. Dinos maybe all day.
My head hurts. My head hurts so badly.
The thing I love this card about the most isn't the bottom ability, which I actually think is just really good. It's that middle ability. Whenever creature 4 comes in, drawing a card is an effect that's really good in green, especially when you're dealing with creature decks.
You couldn't just have a 7-mana trample with 1 ability. No. You gotta have a 7-mana trample with 6/6 trample with 2 abilities.
What it needs is another line of text and then 3 keywords to be the questing beast, and then this would be the best card I've ever seen. No, I love this card. Its price is going up. If you want one, pretty please buy it now because it's not going to get cheaper.
That card's good. Go ahead with this one. Oh wait, this is me. It's my turn. Shh, my turn. Shh. Pest control.
There's no need to talk.
This is literally me right now. I'm doing pest control in my house. Anyways, it's 1 white, 1 black for a sorcery that reads: destroy all non-land permanents with mana value 1 or less. It also has cycling too, if you're worried about that.
Like, you ever feel like Wizards just every now and then prints a card specifically to spite you?
Do you ever feel like you should stop playing token decks?
No, never. Never once in my life. I read this card and I was like, oh, I know at least 3 decks off the top of my head in my play group that are going to get one of these and put them in there.
I already know one dude who probably already bought it. Like, come on, Andrew has literally already got
one dude
this card.
traded me for the one that I pulled, and I was like, can't wait to get pest control. This card, to be honest, there's no reason not to play. With how many token decks exist, and it is one or less. So you're going to take out the Soul Rings. You're going to take out the Cheerio Mana Rocks, and you're just going to take out the whole board of tokens, treasures, food, all those artifact tokens that you make that have mana value 0 are gone. So really good board wipe for 2 mana. No, it's not going to hit anything that is a regular piece to a combo probably, but I mean, if you have a deck that's setting up to take over next turn and has a bunch of tokens on board, congratulations, they're all gone.
Or if somebody just ramped out way too quickly, just get them out.
And then, hey, worst case scenario, you cycle it for 2 mana, which is still something we need to talk about. Like, if this didn't have cycling, it might be a little bit more corner case, but the fact that it has cycling makes it just probably worth it.
You put it in most, if not every Orzhov deck, I think, with that.
Because worst case scenario, you just pitch it for a card.
Yep.
If you're not playing a token deck that you're worried about, cool, I'm just going to pitch it for a card and maybe it gets me a land or another mana rock,
Yep.
Like, I think this card's going to hold a good value. Is it an Orzhov staple? Probably, in my opinion, just with how many commander decks these days play tokens. Not just me. I mean, there's so many decks out there that make tokens. Get them before they're expensive is really the only thing I can say.
Get them before they're gone.
At least the good part is this isn't a card that's named specifically to any one set, so like hopefully they'll print another one soon.
Let's talk about a card I'm excited about, but I still don't know where to put it.
Mikey, have you ever set on wish that we got another sword?
I actually, yes.
It's great because that's what we're talking about.
I want all of them. All right, what's this one?
Sword of Wealth and Power, a 3-mana artifact
terrible.
equipment. Man, that seems really similar. Equips for 2. A creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from instants and from sorceries. Intriguing.
It's basically Ward, but better.
When a creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Okay.
Seems decent.
When you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell on whatever you next cast. So it's only your next one. You may choose new targets for the copy. It's not Feast and Famine, but it's certainly good.
You just add it to your swords collection. Just have a good time. First off, side note, I want to know what the heck kind of monster that is and that art. But second, this card is just
I think it's
freaking cool.
It's definitely top tier. It's one of the better ones because you're right. It basically gives you Shroud to a lot of removal.
Yeah.
You don't get around the enchantment removal. If somebody Darksteel mutations you, wow, they found the one way around this card. But it's going to take care of most of the ways that people are going to try to remove.
Just put one of the other swords that says protection from white. Ta-da!
But I mean, the ability's good in a deck where you can really take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Get a treasure and then copy the next thing you cast. And the best part is right, what's the thing you're always told about decks? You want to always wait till main 2 to do the things you want to do if you need to be in combat. And this
is
card
forcing you to do that,
rewards you for that. It's saying, hey, wait, and then you're going to get the reward for waiting to main 2 before you play the things you need to play.
What's really interesting is I'm seeing with this is kind of like enchantment decks, or I guess sometimes your creature decks want to do this too, where you're trying to set up multiple pieces. This is another piece that you're trying to set up to it. I feel like this is something I'm trying to personally do, is trying to figure out a good commander to take the lead for all these swords, because I want to throw all the swords in a deck.
Sir Gwen?
No, because I want to put it on one person and just kill somebody. That's just what I want to do. I'm sorry.
Surgo. I mean,
Maybe.
I know.
Maybe.
Too easy a response.
I was thinking Miri because I'm a terrible degenerate and only want to make people block with one creature if they can, or attack with one creature.
Still one of my favorite equipment commanders has gotten printed in the last year that is really fun because you get to both go wide and care about equipment is the Kellen from Wilds of Eldraine.
Oh, yeah.
A creature that gives all your other creatures +2/+0 for each equipment or aura attached to it.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to get brutal if you make tokens at all.
No, and there's not enough equipment out there that makes tokens.
Not literally one.
Not one. There's 5.
Yeah. I feel like now's the time I want to talk about Scepter of Celebration.
What the heck? No. Get out.
I'd love to just take
You can't even play that in Kellen.
Yeah, you can. It's
a green-white, right?
It's a green card.
Yeah. Anyway, you and your get out. These guys are gonna ban us. These guys are gonna ban us.
They can't ban us. We run the channel.
They're gonna say, nobody watch their stuff anymore.
They're going to report specifically that 10-second clip for, like, adult material. And YouTube's going to be like, I don't know what they're talking about, but probably, and get us flagged.
I'm 100% clipping it and putting it as a short. Anyways, here's what I want. I would love to know what cards you're throwing in your 99 that were from the set that we didn't talk about. Mostly because I need more ideas for more decks.
There's a lot of cards in this set that I'm sure are probably going to get used. These are just the ones that we kind of cherry-picked that we liked. Because if we tried to talk about every card in the set, we'd be a 4-hour podcast, like limited resources. So that's not what we want to do.
What I'm noticing by the set releases, that Wizards have done for the past, like, probably 3 or so years, is like the second set seems to be like really powerful and have like a lot of good crap in it. So like last year we saw the Phyrexian thing, not all the way we won, but after that was Margin Machine. Yeah, and that had some good stuff in it. And then the year before that was
The
Copenna.
Machine was solid.
And then it was Copenna, and Copenna had some pretty good stuff.
Copenna was trash. Like, there was nothing good that came out of it.
Definitely not. There's not a cat demon that I hate dearly. No, not one bit.
Not at all.
But so, like, these past few years, I feel like the second set has always been pretty good at some commander cards that you want to throw in your 99, throw as your new commander, or just buy because it's at $130,000 or some stupid crap. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing, a lot of people really lament about the fact that everything's so focused around Commander these days. All these new legendaries, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that. But what I think I love most about Magic as of late is that you look at these sets and there's so many of these small pieces that really help certain types of decks. It's not just them printing 95 new legendaries that you need to build right now, otherwise you're never going to be able to play this deck.
Please don't.
It's... One, maybe there's a new option in case you don't like the option you've been playing. But number two, it's like, here's one or two new cards for that archetype that might, like, really matter.
Right.
And what I like about, look at a card like Hell to Pay, right, that we just talked about. That's a 25-cent card. It's not going to be a $3 card, but it's going to help certain decks a lot. And those are the cards we want to see.
Yep.
Not the Wealth and Powers that are $30 and are going to be $30 out the door.
There was a guy Friday night that had one, and I almost was going to be like, I will take this off your hands. And I looked up how much it was, and I was like, I don't think I could do that to this man.
But again, I think more often than not, we're looking at these $1 to $4 cards that are all day, every day includes in these main archetypes, rather than these $30 bombs that you're going to put in whatever deck. And I think that's important. Like, it's important to talk about. Yes, there's a lot of new legendaries, but there's also a lot of new fun support cards.
Yeah.
And I think people talk about legendaries like they aren't playable in the 99 of other decks. Like you'd never put a legendary creature in another deck, like they'd never be viable. And I'm like, you're crazy. Like, I look at some of these new legendaries like Rakdos, and I'm like, if you have a Jund Sacrifice deck, congratulations, you got another piece to your deck.
Yeah, whatever worst card you had, put Rakdos in there.
Like I joked about with Slick Shot Show Off. If you're playing an Anala Grixis Wizards deck, congratulations, you get to take out the wizard you've always hated, but it had to keep that 33rd creature slot in your deck because you needed that amount. Congratulations, you just upgraded it.
Exactly.
And that's the important part. It's the same way with most
legendaries.
I'm sorry, I refuse the word. You use the word kindred. We're all grown adults. We can say tribal like real people, but most tribal decks, anytime you get a creature with a new creature type, you're like, can this replace a creature that's already in my deck?
Probably.
And it's good. Yep. Like, I think that's important. It's important to talk about. And I hate that the discourse is just, oh my gosh, another Simic legendary, it's so broken, or oh my gosh, this is crap, why would they print it? I think the game's about more than that. It's about creating options for us as players to build the way we want to build. And if we want that to continue as a format, we need that.
Yeah, that's something I kind of started to focus on when I was building for like the arena deck that I've made or whatever with Vial Smasher. I was like, this is not something I would build, but I'm going to because it's something super different. It's not, anything different than what we've seen with like other creature tokens or just dropping creatures in or anything like that, or just doing damage like Rakdos does. But it is just a different way to do it, right? So like I want the ETB triggers and so on and so forth for Vial Smasher to do what it wants to do. And that's the same with like if you play Kellen, it's kind of like Tulane but different. If you play,
we look at the new Girid. Like, it's going to play really different than other Naya token legendaries. And it's like, it just goes to show you that just because a card is printed in the same colors and design space as another card doesn't mean that it has to be strictly better or that it's the same.
Yep.
You know, I made the joke earlier, but it's the truth. I've always kind of lamented the fact that I would really love to have both a Ginny Fey and a Jetmir deck, because I think they play completely differently. They play completely different cards, and they could be two fun decks that may share some cards, but in all reality, they're going to differ. And I think you get that way with a lot of commanders, and I wish we would look at it more that way, rather than, oh, they had to print another Bant legendary that does this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yes, like the Jennifer explanation there. I mean, it's the same because it's like, oh, 2 tokens deck, but like you said, it's totally different because like you could still put the same 99 in there. You have Jennifer at the helm rather than Jetmir at the helm. Your deck's going to do completely different things.
And with those decks specifically, you go from a mid-range deck that cares about ending the game quickly to a mid-range deck that cares about outvaluing your opponents.
Exactly.
Like it's just, you know, and that's,
what do you want to do? And that's
to me,
what's
that's
so
cool.
good here.
It's cool that that's an option, and I think the thing we don't talk about enough as Commander players is that you could even take your deck and switch a legendary creature that you have in the deck into the command zone slot to try to see what your deck would look different.
There's a channel, I will not say it's not bad or anything, but the dude talked about something like this that I'm going to bring up. Do you think that the reason why, and we're probably going way too far into this, but do you think that the problem that we see is everybody looks at, I don't want to bash it, but for instance, like EDH Rec, everyone looks at like the top 50 commanders, realizes what they do, how good they can be or are, and then go, okay, that's the standard. That's our format right there. Do you think people do that, and then once they like release something else that's maybe similar to that, like I don't have an example off the top of my head, but when they release another commander that's similar to those top 50, that's when people start going, but you're bad.
Yeah, I think they do, and it frustrates me. And I've seen this, I'll be honest. I've seen this in the comment section of our channel where I'll brew a deck and somebody will go, why aren't you including this card? And I'm like, but people get mad if you just copy an average deck from EDH Rec and call it your brew. But if I don't include a card that EDH Rec says it's in 80% of decks, people will go, why didn't you include this card?
Yeah.
I think it's the problem with any game where there are internet forums to collect deck lists. You're always going to have this problem. Mm-hmm. But I think you probably realize in our play group, there's been decks in our play group that have done really well that aren't popular commanders because someone has an idea for a deck and makes it work.
No, and I like those decks more, and I like playing against them more. I'd rather see those more often.
For me, I've always felt Goreclaw was an example of that. Goreclaw is nowhere near the top 10 popular mono green commanders, but the decks work because I knew what I wanted and I made the deck work.
That's kind of what I like.
And I think Jetmir is kind of on the opposite side where it's a popular Naya commander, but I still think I play that deck differently than a lot of people do.
No, because you're not playing the Ren and Siri normalness. That's why.
I've always focused that deck on outvaluing you over the course of the game versus, I don't know. That's the one thing that still irritates me to this day. When I play it on Arena, I get in the mirror matches and people put Jetmir down turn 3. And I'm like, you're just asking to get it removed. And then it's going to cost you 6 next time. Why?
People do dumb things. I don't know, man.
I'm going to give you guys an off-ramp now while I proceed to talk about the intricacies of a Jetmir deck for the next 45... they're like, no.
You've already gone on 5 different soapboxes tonight. We're done.
I want more soapbox opportunities.
We're done.
It's not like I run a YouTube channel where I can make a video about this. I just want this opportunity.
You should just talk about Jetmir for 45 minutes straight. I bet you could.
Don't tempt me.
All right. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
No, we talked about Outlaws. We talked about the good cards. We talked about the cards that I don't understand.
We talked about the Thunder. We talked about the Junction.
We talked about Golden Hydra. I mean, that was important.
So, anyways, we'll see you guys next time. No, we're done. We're done talking about green cards for like 6 years. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Of course, all the good stuff. We'll see you next time.